Okay. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Comptia Security Plus course, User Education. The user could be the single most exploitable resource of a company. I think that the previous section about social engineering provides a good argument to support that opinion. People aren't computers. Some might be compared to robots, perhaps unfairly, but no matter how logical and disciplined a person might be, there is always a potential for human error. So until firewalls are developed for people's brains, education becomes the best method to prevent social engineering attacks and malware infection, not to mention user error. As an IT manager, I've always made it a point to incorporate technology and security training for as many employees as possible. This would include classroom, conference room training, written materials, digital courses, even funny posters in the cafeteria. I'd use whatever platform I could to get the point across. The key is to make it accessible to the user and to make it interesting and fun. There are several roadblocks when it comes to user training. The first is organizational acceptance. Are the executives of a company on board with the idea? As time moves on, we see that more and more executives include user training as a matter of course. However, if you come across an individual who's against the idea because of a lack of budgeting or time, then then your counter is to simply show that person a news article about one of the many successful attacks that have occurred recently, then show a case study of the amount of time and money that the affected company lost due to the attack, and in most cases, how easily it could have been prevented. Then there are the employees to be trained themselves. Some will put up a fight when it comes to education. Again, the secret ingredient here is to the interest of the users, get them involved, make it fun, create a reward system, use your imagination. Some organizations employ IT trainers on a full-time basis or as consultants. Good IT trainers know how to get through to the typical employee. Other organizations will offer incentives for attending training or penalties for not attending, though statistics show that incentives usually work better than penalties. You can also attempt role playing. I'm not talking about role playing games such as Dungeons and Dragons, rather having the employees act out different organizational roles such as systems administrators, privileged users, executive users, data owners, system owners, and of course typical end users. Throw in the hacker and or con artists as the bad guy roles, and you can really teach in a fun way. Create scenarios where people can learn in a tangible way how attacks are carried out and how they can be prevented. Quiz the employees, but keep it light. The idea is for employees to expand their knowledge into other areas of the company, a sort of tabletop job rotation, so to speak. Develop the situations and solutions properly, and the whole organization becomes stronger and more secure unit thanks to you. Come on, you always aspired to be a dungeons master. Finally, there is time factor. People have projects and tasks to complete and usually aren't even given enough time for that. Where does the time for training come from? This is when the mindset of loyalty to the company comes in, and human resources can usually be helpful in cultivating that mindset. The whole outlook should be used on the idea of overall efficiency and benefits to the company and individual. By sitting on security training, the user will save time over the long term and ultimately become a more knowledgeable person. Anyway, for the Security Plus certification, how the training gets accomplished isn't as important as what is covered in the training. The following is a basic list of rules you can convey when training employees. Never under any circumstances give out any authentication details such as passwords, pins, company ID tokens, smart cards, and so on. Always shield keypads and screens when entering authentication information. Adhere to the organization's clean desk policy, which states that all documents, electronics, personally owned devices, and other items to be put away or locked away when the user is not at his or her desk or other work area. Always screen your email and phone calls carefully and keep a log of events. This is also known as communications vetting. Use encryption when possible to protect emails, phone calls, and data. If there is any doubt as to the legitimacy of a person email or phone call document, the situation, and escalate it to your supervisor, security, or the authorities. Um, Never pick up, make use of any unknown removable media. Always shred any sensitive information destined for the garbage or recycling. Always comply with company policy when it comes to data handling and disposal. For example, if a hard drive, USB flash drive, memory stick, or optical disc is no longer being used, make sure it is disposed of properly. If the user is not sure, contact the IT department or facilities department of the organization to find out if it should be recycled or destroyed. Always track and expedite shipments. Be extremely careful when using a web browser. Double check everything that is typed before entering and clicking go. Don't click on anything unless you know exactly what it is. I triple starred this one because web-based attacks account for a huge percentage of damage to organizations. When training employees, try to keep them interested, infuse some fun, and be silly if you want to. For instance, the first bullet said to never give out authentication details. Pundits tell us never say never. Well, if that's okay for them, then it's okay for us. And in this case, it's vital to the health of your organization, not to mention you. You see what I mean? Or if you don't really want to be silly, then consider imparting some real examples. Use examples of social engineering so that your trainees can make the connection between actual social engineering methods and their defenses. Make them understand that social engineers don't care how powerful an organization's firewall is or how many armed guards a company has. They get past they get past technology and other new types of security by exploiting the weakness inherent in human nature. The previous list of social engineering methods and defenses are no way finite. There are so many ways to con a person and so many ways to defend against the con. However, some of the best weapons against social engineering, aside from user education and awareness, are policies and procedures and their constant analysis. Facility security, although it is usually the duty of the IT director and building management to take care of the installation, maintenance, and repair of facilities related to technology, you should also have a basic knowledge of how these systems function. Significant concepts include environmental controls such as fire suppression, and HVAC, shielding of equipment and company vehicles. By far, the concept a person would spend most of the time dealing with when planning a server room or data center is fire suppression. Fire suppression. We talked about fire suppression somewhat in chapter 6, redundancy and disaster recovery, but we need to dig a bit deeper into the types you can employ and some of the policies and procedures involved with fire suppression. Fire suppression is the process of controlling and or extinguishing fires to protect an organization's employees, its data, and its equipment. There are basically three types of fire suppression you should know about. Handheld fire extinguisher solutions sprinkler solutions, and special hazard protection systems, such as those used in server rooms. Fire extinguishers. Be careful when selecting a handheld fire extinguisher. There are several types to choose from. They vary depending on what type of environment you work in. Keep in mind that any one of these will probably cause damage to computers, phones, and other electronics, with only a couple of exceptions. These solutions should not be used in a server room or other critical areas of your organization. Here are some of the classifications of fires and their indicators on corresponding fire extinguishers. Fire Class A, denoted by green triangle. This class defines use for ordinary fires consuming solid consumables such as wood. Think A for ash to help remember this type. Water-based extinguishers are suitable for Class A fires only and should not be used in a server room. Fire Class B, represented by a red square. This defines use for flammable liquid and gas fires. I like to remember this by associating B with butane because butane is a highly flammable gas. Fire Class C, indicated by with a blue circle. This type defines use for electrical fires. For example, when an outlet is overloaded, think C for copper, as in copper electrical wiring. To aid in memorizing this type. If a fire occurs in a server room and you don't have a special hazard system, the multi-purpose BC extinguisher CO2 is the best handheld extinguisher to use. Electrical fires are the most likely type of fire in a server room. Fire Class D, designated with a yellow deacon. This type defines use for combustible metal fires such as magnesium, titanium, and lithium. A Class D extinguisher is effective in case a laptop's battery spontaneously ignites. Chemical laboratories and PC repair labs should definitely have one of these available. Metal fires can easily and quickly spread to become ordinary fires. These fire extinguishers are usually yellow. It is one of only a couple that deviate from the standard red color. Also, this is the only other exception when it comes to the use of extinguishers in a critical area of your organization. Because of those two reasons, I like to remember it by associating D with deviate. Fire Class K, symbolized with a black hexagon. This type is for cooking oil fires. This one type of extinguisher that should be kept in any kitchen. This is important if your organization has a cafeteria with cooking equipment. Think of K for kitchen when remembering this type. The previous bulleted list is not an official standard, but is used by most manufacturers of fire extinguishers in the United States. Other countries might have a slightly different system. In general, the most common type of fire extinguisher used in a building is the multi-purpose dry chemical ABC extinguisher. However, this is extremely messy. It gets into everything. Plus, it can cause corrosion of computer components over time. For server rooms, BC extinguishers are sometimes employed. The most common is the carbon dioxide CO2 extinguisher. The CO2 extinguisher displaces oxygen, which is needed for a fire to burn, in addition to heat and fuel, which collectively makes up the fire triangle. CO2 extinguishers are relatively safe for computer components, especially compared to ABC extinguishers. However, the CO2 extinguisher can possibly cause damage to computer components from electrostatic discharge (ESD), although it is rare. Also, if carbon dioxide is released in an enclosed space where people are present, there is a risk of suffocation. If the organization has the money, it is far more preferable to use an ABC rated halogen extinguisher in the server room, or better yet, a special hazard protection system. Older extinguishers such as halon are not used anymore because they are harmful to the environment. Less developed countries might still use them, but most governments have banned the use of halon. If you see one of these, it should be replaced with a newer extinguisher that uses environment-safe halocarbon agents such as halogen or Fe36. These are known as gases, clean agents that are not only safe for humans and safe for IT equipment, but are better for the environment as well. Gases fire suppression systems are the best for server rooms. Sprinkler systems. The most common type of fire sprinkler system consists of a pressurized water supply system that can deliver a high quantity of water to an entire building via a piping distribution system. This is known as a wet pipe sprinkler system. Typical to these systems are sprinkler heads with glass bulbs, often red, or two-part metal links. When a certain amount of predetermined heat reaches a bulb or link, it causes it to shatter or break, applying pressure to the sprinkler cap and initiating the flow of water from that sprinkler and perhaps others in the same zone. The entire system is usually controlled by a valve assembly, often located in the building's basement. Some organizations have a need for a dry pipe system, which is necessary in spaces where the temperature of that area of the building can be cold enough to freeze the water in the wet pipe system. In this type of system, the pipes are pressurized with air and water is sent through the system only if necessary. For example, during a fire, regardless of the system, an organization should conduct periodic fire drills to simulate a real fire and sprinkler system activation. Afterward, the security administrator should simulate disaster recovery procedures as detailed in Chapter 16. Most local municipalities require that organizations possess a sprinkler system that covers all the building's floor space. However, standard wet pipe or dry pipe systems are not acceptable in server rooms because if set off, they will most likely damage the equipment within. If a person were working in the server room and somehow damaged a pipe, it could discharge, possibly sending a few servers to the scrap heap. Instead, another option for a server room would be pre-action sprinkler system and possibly a special hazard protection system in addition to that. A pre-action sprinkler system is similar to a dry pipe system, but there are requirements for it to be set off, such as heat or smoke. So even if a person were to damage one of the pipes in the sprinkler system, the pre-action system would not be set off. Special hazard protection systems. I've mentioned several times that your server room contains the livelihood of your organization, its data. If you don't protect the data, you'll be out of a job. One way to protect the server room is by installing a clean agent fire suppression system. Special clean agent fire extinguishers such as Haloron or Fe36 are recommended for server rooms because they leave no residue after the fire is extinguished, reducing the likelihood of damage to a computer systems and networking equipment. Also, they are rated as ABC, so they can put out not only electrical fires, but also the ash fire that will most likely ensue. All the other systems mentioned up to this point can easily cause computer failure if they are discharged. The ultimate solution would be to equip the server room with a special hazard protection system, a clean agent such as FM200. This gases system would be installed in addition to the pre-action system or other dry pipe system. If the organization can afford it, The system uses a large tank that stores a clean agent fire extinguishant in the form of a liquid. It is sprayed from one or more nozzles in the ceiling of the server room in a gas form. A system such as this can put out most classes of fire in seconds. This type of product does not do damage to the equipment and can be used safely when people are present. However, most of the systems also employ a very loud alarm that tells all personnel to leave the server room. It's usually so loud and abrasive that you are compelled to leave. It is wise to run through fire suppression alarm tests and fire drills, ensuring that the alarm will sound when necessary and that IT personnel know what to do when the alarm sounds, namely leave. In some cases, these systems will shut the door automatically after a certain timeout. In these cases, procedures should be written out specifying what to do if a fire occurs. Drilling is of utmost importance in these environments to make certain that everyone knows to leave the server room quickly if a fire occurs. Again, after the drills have been completed, the appropriate IT personnel should simulate disaster recovery procedures. If necessary, if the system was installed properly and does its job, the situation should be minimum. HVAC or heating, ventilation, air conditioning is important for server rooms, data centers, and other technology-oriented areas of your building. Servers run hot, their CPUs can make the temperatures inside the case skyrocket. This heat needs to be dissipated and exhausted outside the case. All the heat from the servers and other networking equipment is enough to make your server room fry. To alleviate the situations, organizations install a heavy duty air conditioning system used solely for the server room. This can provide an appropriate ambient temperature for the servers. Often the system also includes a humidity control. As we know, static electricity is our enemy. By increasing humidity, we decrease the build-up of static electricity and the chance of ESD. Also, this can enable us to keep our equipment from getting too humid, which can also cause failure. It is important to have this system on its own dedicated circuit that is rated properly, because most AC systems use refrigerant. It is important to locate the device and any pipes away from where servers and other equipment will be situated or use a pipeless system. The controls for this system should be within the server room, perhaps protected by a key code. This way, only authorized IT personnel who have access to the server room can change the temperature or humidity. This control can also be hooked up to the door access system or monitoring system to log who made changes and when. Another way to improve the heat situation is to circulate the air, and one smart way to do this is to install hot and cold aisles. To illustrate this concept, imagine you had several rows of servers inside cabinets, all of which are resting on raised floors. You would set up the fronts of the cabinets of each row to face each other, forming a cold aisle. The row you would normally walk down to access the servers. The cold air is pumped into the aisle from the raised floor. Since most servers and other IT equipment use front to back heat dissipation, the heat should be exhausted out behind the row. That's where the hot aisle, along with network cables, power cables, and so on. The hot air is exhausted through the raised floor or through exhaust ducts in the ceiling. A heating system is rarely needed in a server room unless the organization's building is in the coldest environment. This is due to the amount of heat that all the servers give off and the fact that they usually run 24/7. If there is a power failure that cannot be alleviated by the use of a UPS and or backup generator. You might opt to shut down all but the necessary systems temporarily. Some organizations enforce this by way of written policy to help monitor HVAC systems and their power consumption. Industrial control systems, ICS, such as the supervisory control and data acquisition SCADA computer control system will be used. A system such as SCADA combines hardware monitoring devices, pressure gauges, electrodes, remote thermal units that connect to sensors with software that is run on an admin's or building management employee's workstation, allowing the admin to monitor the HVAC system in real time. There could also be a human-machine interface (HMI) that displays SCADA animations on a separate screen in a strategic place in the building. SCADA systems are vulnerable to viruses such as Stuxnet that can be used to access design files. To protect against this, the workstation that runs the software portion of SCADA should have its AV software updated, and any separate physical interface displays and sensors should be secured and perhaps be placed within view of a CCTV system. Aside from monitoring, HVAC, heating and ventilation systems are usually beyond the knowledge of the IT people, and any maintenance or repair of such systems should be directed to qualified professionals. Sometimes the building management is responsible for such systems, but more than likely the organization is responsible for the installation, repair, and maintenance. What's important to know for the exam is that HVAC systems address the need for availability of data. So I'm going to leave it here today for this video. If you like listening, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you.